Page number 8 continued. In William Dunbar, 1465 to 1530, the greatest British poet between Chaucer and Spenser. In William Dunbar, 1465 to 1530, the greatest British poet between Chaucer and Spenser, the individual quality is much more apparent. His graceful allegorical poem, The Thistle and the Rose, composed to commemorate the marriage of James IV of Scotland and Margaret, daughter of Henry VII of England, is quite in the manner of Chaucer's early poetry. But in much of his later verse, as in his satirical ballads and in his remarkable Dance of the Seven Deadly Sins, there is a combination of vigor, broad humor, and homely pathos, which belongs wholly to the character of the poet and to his native soil. The true Scottish quality is also in the ascendant in Robert Henryson 1430 to 1506, who followed the Chaucerian model in his Testament of Cresside, but also produced in Robin and Mackay a story which anticipates Burns' Duncan Gray, and in Gawain or Gavin Douglas in 1474 to 1522. Bishop of Dunkeld, whose Polis of Honour is full of Chaucer, while his original prologues to the successive books of his translation of the Aeneid, Aeneid, bear the stamp of the writer's own mind and style. The treatment of nature by these Scottish poets in general is especially interesting. Chaucer's May morning and garden landscape has become a convention which his English disciples were content to reproduce. In Scottish poetry too, the convention reappears, but on the other hand, we often find real Scotch scenery painted manifestly by men who, instead of adopting a mere literary fashion, had studied and were trying to depict the nature about them for themselves. Thus, 3 of Douglas's prologues, just mentioned, deal with the country in spring, in autumn, and in winter, and though there are many stereotyped details, the pictures are evidently painted directly from reality and with wonderful care and accuracy. This faithful rendering of the landscape is a characteristic which should be remembered, for as we shall learn in due course, Scottish poets did much to bring the love of nature into later English literature. It will be seen that in speaking of these Scottish poets, we have followed the Chaucerian tradition into the 16th century, but though they thus wrote on into a time when new ideas of poetry were beginning to arise, the general quality of their work leads us to class them with the 15th century men. I must add that though poetically poor in other respects, this 15th century seems to have been rich in a particular kind of minor verse. We cannot indeed be sure when such poems as the Battle of the Otterburn, the Nut Brown Maid, and the numerous ballads of the Robin Hood cycle first took shape, but there is good reason to believe that ballad literature in general became increasingly popular in the century after Chaucer's death. Often rude in style, but often wonderfully direct and vigorous and full of real feeling. These ballads did much to foster a love of poetry among the English people. Main poetical works of Chaucer are broadly divided into three classes corresponding the three periods of his life. French period from 1359 to 1372. Chaucer was considerably influenced by French masters such as Marchot, Guillaume de Lorry, and Jean de Meung. Machaut, Marchot, Guillaume de Lorry, Guillaume, Guillaume de Lorry, Lorry, Lorris, Lorry, and Jean de Meung, Jean de Meung, Meung. The poems of this period were written under the French influence and exhibit a zest for life and sense of animation for the glories of love and life. Like the French masters of poetry, Chaucer experienced restraint in the expression of his emotion. He tempered his irony with wit and provoked smiles rather than unchecked laughter. This subdued character of his poetry is in conformity with French models. Everything during this period of Chaucer's workmanship is French. In the words of Legius, Legoius, a Frenchman may enter Chaucer's country and be conscious of no change of sky or climate. End of page number 8, now page number 9. The main work of this period is the Romaunt of the Rose, a lengthy allegorical poem written in an octosyllabic couplets and directly based upon Le Roman de la Rose of Guillaume de Lorry and Jean de Meung. The poem consists of 7,700 lines. It is a fragment and was once entirely ascribed to Chaucer, but recent research based upon a scrutiny of Chaucerian style has suggested that only the first part is his work. The other poems of this period are Dete of Blanche, the Duchess, better known as the Boke of the Duchess, a poem of considerable dramatic and emotional power written after the death of Blanche, wife of Chaucer's patron, John of Gaunt. Complainte to Pite, a graceful love poem. The ABC, a prayer to the Virgin, translated from French of Cistercian monk. Italian period from 1373 to 1386. In 1372, Chaucer had been to Italy and came in personal contact with Dante, Petrarch and Boccaccio. Of these great Italian masters, Dante exercised the least influence on Chaucer, for like him, the English poet could neither soar to Empyrean heights nor scale down to Tartarian depths. Petrarch also had little influence on Chaucer. Boccaccio alone exercised a deep influence on Chaucer's art during this period. The chief work of the second or Italian period is Troilus, Troilus, Troilus and Criseyde, Criseyde, Criseyde. a poem of 8,200 lines adapted from Boccaccio's Il Filostrato, the love-smitten one. The main difference between Boccaccio and Chaucer is that the latter emphasizes character rather than passion. Boccaccio's emphasis was primarily on passion and voluptuousness, but Chaucer was specially drawn to the study of character. Troilus is the perfect lover, so finely drawn that even Shakespeare could only heighten the intensity of the rendering by his more powerfully dramatic language. Pandarus, who is in the original, was a young friend of Troilus, bound by the laws of friendship to advance his friend's aim, is converted into an older man, the uncle of Cresseide. He is a good fellow according to his lights, full of a humorous, worldly, cynical wisdom which vents itself in pithy proverbs, but with a totally disillusioned view of the character of women. Cresseide is the boldest reconstruction and has proved rather a puzzle to Chaucer's critics. Boccaccio's heroine is a light skirt whose sole requirement is secrecy. To Chaucer, she is the woman in love with all a woman's natural weaknesses. The ebb and flow of her feelings from the first visit of Pandarus to her final yielding are described with the subtlety of thought into the working of a woman's heart, such as we do not find again in this literature till we come to Richardson's Clarissa, when another complicating factor enters a Puritan upbringing. The ebb and flow of her feelings from the first visit of Pandarus to her final yielding are described with the subtlety of thought into the working of a woman's heart, such as we do not find again in literature till we come to Richardson's Clarissa, when another complicating factor enters a Puritan upbringing. The complex characters of Cresseide and Pandarus, says Albert, reveal a new subtlety of psychological development and indicate Chaucer's growing insight into the human emotion or human motives. This work is equally remarkable for its narrative charm, and the rhyme royal stanzas are marked with a note of dexterity and beauty. Of the rhyme royal stanza, the stanza of 7 lines, the poet is now a perfect master, and if his diction has not acquired its fun, suppleness and variety of application, its dignity and its facility for the purpose for which it is actually applied, leave nothing nothing whatever to be desired. It is one of the weaknesses of medieval poverty that in spite of charming a subject and frequent facilities and imagery, the verse lacks finish, and the phrase does not have concentrated fire or sweetness, but Troilus and Cressida does not suffer from this besetting blemish of medieval poetry. The pathos of the poem is touching and moves as to the depth of our heart. The complex characters of Cressida and Pandurus, says Albert, reveal a new subtlety of psychological and development and indicate Chaucer's growing height into human motives. This work is equally remarkable for its native narrative charm and the rhymed royal stanzas are marked with a note of dexterity and beauty. On the hand, some stanza of the rhymed royal stanza, the stanza of 7 lines, the poet is now a perfect master. Yet, if his diction has not acquired its fun suppleness and variety of application, its dignity and its facility for the purposes of which it is actually applied have nothing whether to be desired. If it is one of the weaknesses of the rhymed royal stanza, the stanza of the 7 lines, the poet is now a perfect master, and if his diction has not acquired in its fun suppleness and variety of application, in its dignity and its facility for the purposes to which it is actually applied, leave nothing whatever to be denied. It is one of the weaknesses of medieval poetry that in spite of the charming subject and frequent facilities and imagery, the verse lacks the verb lacks finish and the verse lacks finish, and the prose does not have concentrated fire for all romances. Yet it is one of the weaknesses of the medieval poetry, but that in spite of charming subject and frequent felicities and imaginary, the verse lacks small, and the phrase does not have concentrated fire on sweetness. But Troilus and Cressida does not suffer from this being the besetting blemish of medieval poetry. The pathos of a poem is touching, and again there is a large medieval poetry. The pathos of the poem is touching and moves us to the depth of our heart.